Does anyone remember the time when you could only find variegated carnosas at the store and not even those could be regularly found, and if you wanted some other Hoya that are variegated, you had to go through like extreme lengths to find them? Well, we have come certainly a long way since then, and I am very, very glad to see that. I would like to see as many Hoyas as possible offered in the store, whether they be variegated or not. However, I feel that I have personally become less and less excited about the newly introduced variegated Hoyas, and I feel like I'm not alone on this, especially at such exorbitant prices. And I understand, girls gotta eat. But are variegated Hoyas special anymore? It is the year of our Lord 2020, and there is this one thing on the rise. Yes, I'm talking about the houseplant craze. Before this, at least here in Serbia, you could not really find Hoyas in garden centers except maybe Hoya carnosa, sometimes variegated versions of Hoya carnosa, if you were lucky Hoya australis, but other species not so much. Unlike dragon trees, monkey faces, donkey's tails, mother-in-law's tongues, and some other plants with quite unacceptable names which could be commonly found, Hoyas were simply not that garden centers here would restock often. By the way, since we are on the topic of common names, Hoyas have been sold as wax plants, wax flowers, wax vines, Mary steers, Christ's tears, Christ's wreath, Christ's crown, and crown of thorns. And no matter that, some of those are named for passion flower and euphorbia, which everyone seems to ignore, can we just come together, have some sort of a summit or whatever meeting and just decide on one common name? But it's okay, it's okay. It's not like I get frustrated by names or anything like that. Like, I don't have a video on Hoya names or anything similar. All of that aside, unless you were living in Sweden or you were in specific circles, Hoyas really were not to be found in many places, and I'm very happy that that has changed. In the past 3 years, we have seen the rise and fall of many silver and variegated Hoyas, yet it seems to me that more and more come to the market every single day. And some of those are very legitimate cultivars, and some of those are just renamed plants and something that we used to know, like maybe Hoya lacunosa with silver leaves. I'm looking at you. Yes, there seem to be legitimately different cultivars of Hoya lacunosa with silver leaves, but in the past year that has become such a mess that I'm not gonna touch it even with a 10-foot pole. I remember how excited I was when I got variegated Hushkeliana, Kintiana, lacunosa, subquintupla nervis, and I still love those plants very much. I thought we could not possibly surpass variegated lacunosa, and then they introduced variegated Hoya sulawesiana. And now we see new variegated Hoyas introduced at such a rapid pace that you cannot even digest one, and the next thing you know, Instagram is smashing your face into another new variegated Hoya.
I like best.
Aside from variegated Hoya Polinera and Hoya Lee, which were fairly recently introduced, that means last year or maybe a bit more than that, I have seen variegated Merili, Caniacumariana, Rigidifolia, Caudata, Bacoensis. I counted 9, I cannot even remember all of them. Obscura, Crassipetiolata, Elliptica. One I'm missing. I'm probably actually missing more than one because new ones come every day to the market. There are inner variegated versions, outer variegated versions, and then there are versions which I'm not really sure how to classify because they are allegedly new versions of variegated cultivars of plants that we already had. So we had variegated Hoya carnosa compacta, inner variegated, which we call Mauna Loa, and there is a new variegated version of that is somehow different? Question mark? All I'm saying here is I cannot keep track. And don't even get me started on how some of these look. Like standards, anyone? No? We left those? Okay. I remember last year and the year before that being genuinely excited and surprised when I saw a newly variegated Hoya, and now my reaction is, oh, so that's variegated now as well. I'm not saying we should not have more variegated Hoyas at all. I am all for introducing unique and beautiful, underlined and bold, on that word beautiful, cultivars, but the pace at which they are being introduced is absolutely insane. Of course, I understand how business side of this works. You have to keep people interested at all times. That is why we get new species and new plants in garden centers. They have to keep our interest. But I also think this has had an advertent effect on some people like me who look at newly introduced variegated Hoya and they're left indifferent. In fact, I can't remember when was the last time that I saw a variegated Hoya and I was genuinely excited about it. It might have been when I saw the variegated Navajonensis, but my excitement quickly went away when I heard the price. The current state of the Hoya market is that whenever something new is introduced, it is going to cost a lot. Usually that price is around 500 euros or $500, but more often than not, I see them going for 1,000 and even more than that for a small plant. And while this makes sense for some people, I think for a lot of collectors, a lot of passionate collectors, me included, this doesn't make sense at all. I think in 2019, 2020, 2021, people were willing to pay such high prices for newly introduced species or cultivars, but after being in the plant community for just 1 year, you see how quickly a price of something can drop, not to mention the current state of the economy. Let's take out a variegated Hoya Pulinero for example. Last year when it was first introduced, or when I got a whiff of it, it was 500 euros for 1 node and 2 leaves. Today you can buy 1 node and 2 leaves rooted for 50 euros. That is an insane price drop in the span of what is a year, or maybe a little bit less than a year. And don't get me wrong, I am all here for it. What I'm questioning is the initial price at which these plants are introduced into the market. Before, the prices were much more stable and people would buy investment plants and you would expect to turn profit or to get some money back on your investment rare plant. And that is no longer the case. And I don't actually mind when people buy a plant and they intend to sell it or whatever, as long as the price is kept reasonable. But right now what is happening, or what I see happening, is one time the plant is offered at one price, and then the next time it is offered, the price is much, much lower. And before that, this wasn't the case. The price was stable for a year or for several years even. And I understand that some people watching the video will be, well, then it should be like that, but it is my opinion that it doesn't have to be like this. It can be like a stable market. I don't believe that people should not be paid for their work. You know, fair prices for fair amount of work. I believe this should be that. I don't think that the prices should be inflated just because we can do that right now. This year, when I inquired about the variegated Hoya navajonensis, I was quoted $400 for a small plant with several nodes, and I absolutely said no, because absolutely not. And I know that next year this plant will most likely be $40 or $50 for approximately the same size or slightly smaller, because a lot of people bought that plant this year and they will be selling it next year because they expect to turn some profit, to earn some money back. And because a lot of people offered, I can tell you that someone will offer it at a very, very competitive price, because there will be something new out there that is variegated. That is how it works. To someone who is an outsider to this whole process of how variegated Hoya cultivars come to be, it seems to me there is a sure way to get Hoya to be variegated. In the 50s, there were talks about Ed Hummel using radiation to create variegated cultivars of Hoya carnosa that we know and love today. His processes, to my understanding, still remain a mystery, but judging by the sheer amount of new and never before seen variegated Hoyas, it is my personal belief that getting a Hoya to make a variegated vine is less question of luck and more knowledge how to introduce variegation, whether it be biochemical mutagens, gene splicing, or radiation. Of course, some of these cultivars are also found in nature, and in that case it can be hit or miss. For example, Hoya nicholsonia New Guinea Ghost is just a wonderful plant that grows very fast, but not all nature-found cultivars will be like this. If there is a sure way to create all of these cultivars, question remains, why the high price? I'm not saying that the price shouldn't be higher than the green version of the same plant, but going into thousands or several thousands seems a bit off-putting to me. Now, I'm not a time traveler, sadly, but I don't have any record of Ed Hummel charging such exorbitant prices for his variegated cultivars that were also at that time new. The reason why I'm saying all of this is because I believe this is a very unsustainable model, not only because of the rapid introduction of Hoya cultivars and crosses, whether they be variegated or not, but also because some of those are legitimate and some of those are questionable. And I feel this also introduces a lot of confusion into Hoya cultivation, which I do not want to see. We have enough of that, don't you agree? This is a business, and it is a business that I would like to see thrive because I love Hoyas. But my question is, what happens to it if we keep introducing new cultivars, new crosses at such high volume and such rapid pace, making it unstable? One day, a new cultivar can cost a lot of money. The next day, it is worthless. A lot of people's livelihoods depends on this business, not just in the Western countries, but also in the Southeast Asia where these plants originate from. And I would like to see it become more stable and sustainable, making for its long-term success. However, right now it seems to me that that aspect is not given much thought, but instead we have this grab all the money that you can right now mindset. Hello, Editing Miro here. I have a massive headache, so I do apologize if I do not sound very enthusiastic. Literally cannot be enthusiastic right now, but I just wanted to quickly hop on and clarify this a bit because I would not like to be misunderstood. I'm not advocating for higher prices here, and I don't think that they should not drop over time. I don't think that that makes for a stable market, but I think we can all agree that having something cost $1,000 one year and then $50 next year is also not a stable market either. Furthermore, I do believe that the price of the product should reflect the amount of time and effort someone has put into it, whatever that product is, whether it be a plant or a book or a mug, or it doesn't matter what the product is. What this means is that perhaps we cannot have big full pot of Hoyas for $2 because if you just factor in the cost of the pot and the potting mix, stuff don't really add up there. But I also would not like to see cuttings being sold for $500, $1,000, $2,000 or even more. Of course, that being said, I do not need to have the latest Hoya. And again, I'm not saying that maybe there shouldn't be Hoyas out there that cost a lot of money, but I think in that case, that needs to be something that is a true rarity. And with buying that plant or cutting or whatever comes this responsibility that you need to take on as the buyer, that you need to propagate that and kind of make it available in the trade, in the cultivation. However, it seems to me that all of these Hoyas that we are seeing right now being sold for a lot of money are not actual rarities, rather novelties, and there is a difference there. And this applies to species, cultivars, and crosses, in my opinion, because again, we have some new species that are for the first time in circulation, but they're not really actual rarities, rather novelties. They are just appearing for the first time. What I would genuinely love to see is the continuing introduction of all of these cultivars and crosses, but at a reasonable pace. Once they have been grown out, like fully grown out, selected, which is something that is very important, so we don't have 10 Hoyas that are intervariegated and are the same species and the cultivars differ very slightly. We need to select them, and this is something that has been done for decades. It's not nothing new, but it seems to me that the selection is not being done at the moment. Then we grow them out, we check them for stability to see whether they're stable or not, then have them described, named, and published, which is something that is being done by Rachel Collette Conroy or with the help of Rachel Collette Conroy, and then we propagate them in sufficient quantities, grow them out, and release them to the market. Is this more work? Yes. Is this less profitable? I don't think so. Not in the long run. This way, each of these plants will have its own story that is recorded, and it's worth being known and heard. And there is where I find the value of these plants. And that is a mic drop, but from very low heights, because in this economy, I would like to take some time to thank all of my patrons who make content like this possible. A massive shout out to my $5 patrons. My 3 anonymous patrons, Alex von Siebenthal, Anne-Margaret Moen, Angela Bernard, Angela Parrish, and C. Ashley Hoyas, Beth Gibson, Betsy, Catherine Molina, Danube Daniels, Daria Kaminska, Diane Sikorsky, Dipanjali Rao, Farah, Gina Geise, Go Green Tropical, Heather Uppenkamp, Hoji Scott, Houseblend Heather, Hoya Heather, Yana Griffin, Jessica Chia, Yovan Denot, Kara, Casey Gross, Kelly Cook, Kelso, Kiwi Mochi, Kristen Sherwood, LePlan de Steph, Mandy Milliken, Marcel Har, Marcelina Novosansky, Mars B, Martina, Alif Perday, Marty Miller, Mary Rose, Melissa Walker, Michael Curley, Michelle Heron, Nicole Ferranti, Moa Edmond, Nelly Yang, Niha Basu, Nicole Moreau, Nicole and Caleb of Schlieve Tropicals, Nina Nguyen, Nita Macy, PJ, Plan Druid, Planting with Nat, Rachel Peterson, Robin L. Jennings, Robin Roos, Saloma Dal, Sherry Kumar, Stephanie H2O, Sybil Williams, Tanya Tessa Martins, The One True Kyle, Tia B, TJWO, Trista Bailey, Wendy Foreman, Wendy Rossman, Xenia Green, Youth of the Walamud, Zordrama, and Zlakobni Pony. A big thank you to my $3 patrons: Andy H, Angelina Farnan, Anna K, Brenda Little, Brana Phillips, Colleen Coyle Levi, Kilone, Claudia L, Aaron Keenan, Catherine Parsons, Lindsay, Lisa Helling, Morgan Kennedy, Nella, Plumtolinia Ringlov, and Tang Watan Nasria Cool. And a thank you to my $1 patrons: Kari, Christina Greengrass, Constance, Couture Helvetica, ETW, Amelia Bronson, Joanna Pearson, Jolie Sullivan, Kayla Vavra, Kelly Ash, Chris Perez, Lauren M, Lori Ann Supermanium, Luzman Fernandez, Neely Spicer, and Olivia Chinmuller.